We can start, right?
Yes, please go ahead.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone from wherever in the world you may be joining us. My name is Sarah Zaman. I'm the coordinator for Y Emerge. I'd like to officially open the 8th session of our Emerging and Systemic Risks monthly lecture with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge and recognize that many indigenous nations have long-standing relationships with the territory upon which our campuses are located that preceded the establishment of York University. The area is known as Tokorano and has been caretaken by the Anishinaabe Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat. It is now home to many First Nation, Inuit, and Métis communities. We acknowledge the current treaty holders, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. The territory is subject to the Dish with our One Spoon, Wampum Belt Covenant and agreement to peaceably share and care for the Great Lake region. As this is an online event and our participants may be joining from various locations, I strongly encourage you to learn about the traditional land upon which you are located. With this, I welcome our moderator, our speaker, and our participants from around the world. Welcome to the webinar. I'd like to introduce our moderator now, Dr. Ali Asghari. Ali is an expert in disaster emergency and business continuity management. He has been actively involved in research, teaching, and professional activities in these fields since 1993. His research has been published in many leading disaster and emergency management journals. Dr. Asghari is serving as the director of CIFOL. York is a UNITAR affiliated executive leadership and civil society training center. Professor Asghari is also the associate director of Y Emerge. Over to you, Ali.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for the introduction, and thank you everyone for joining us today. It is a real great pleasure to introduce to you our speaker for today. We are glad to focus today on a very important topic that has been focusing on extreme heat in Canada and globally. Lidia has been involved in a very interesting project in Toronto. He's going to speak on that particular project. But to provide you with some background about Lidia's work in this area, I would like to mention that Lidia is the former executive director of what is called Future Watch Environment and Development Education Partners. This is a leading organization in community-based environmental and capacity building initiatives of the city of Toronto. Lidia trained in Argentina for 7 years to become an architect and urban planner. And that's what we share with you, myself, as a background in urban planning, and came to Toronto from Paraguay in 1999. Since 2000, she has used her ability to engage with Toronto multicultural communities to form what is called bridges with mainstream institutions. She has led projects related to urban naturalization, environmental protection, revitalization, and community capacity building, etc. She's known for bringing diversity and leadership to Canada's environmental movement. We are proud of you in doing so. After only 4 years of working in Toronto, her skills and talent were recognized when she received the Vital People Award from the prestigious Toronto Foundation for her outstanding community work. Thank you for all efforts you are doing in this area, Lidia. Without further ado, the floor is yours. Looking forward to your presentation.
Oh, thank you very much, Ali, for having me today here. So I'm going to go directly to my presentation. So I will share my screen here. Okay, so hi everyone, my name is Lidia Ferreira. I am the crew community engagement specialist. Today we are going to speak about heatwave preparation in a low-income, high-rise community. CREW is community resilient to extreme weather. I am going to explain a little bit more about CREW. CREW Toronto basically is CREW. Right now, as we say that, so CREW was formed in 2014 to raise awareness of local climate change impact. And it was a volunteer driving, it still is a volunteer driving organization. And it was created in response to weather events in 2013 during the floods, ice storms, to raise awareness and promote actions around extreme weather impacts and emergency preparedness. So we become a project on Mayway, Charitable Societies shared platform in 2019. So Mayway provide us all the human resources, operational supports. We have a project specialist who is helping us to see different grants and funding sources. We use asset-based community development methods and a helping neighbors approach to engage communities in their own development. So the whole idea with CREW is basically we are bringing people together and discuss about all these different issues about our environment. We don't impose ourselves like teaching people to basically what we want them to do. So we work together. Our 4 key themes are like awareness of local climate change impact, individual and neighborhood emergency preparedness, equitable access to green spaces, and mitigation of social isolation. So this is a project that we are going to learn today is community-led climate resilient in St. Jamestown. So on May 2022, so we have this collaboration work with T, the Toronto Environment Alliance. T is a non-for-profit organization in Toronto, and they are advocating on behalf of Torontonians for a green, healthy, and equitable city. So we basically start this collaboration work with residents and volunteers in St. Jamestown. St. Jamestown is a neighborhood in Toronto. You are going to see the picture. It's like 19 high-rise rental buildings built in the 60s to the 80s. It's one of the most densely populated neighborhoods in Canada. And high-rise residents can experience challenges and risk during a heat wave. They can have a power outage, air quality, food insecurity, eco-anxiety, among many other emergencies. So through this new initiative, we were like basically the aim was to show how impacted high-rise communities can lead climate resilient. So this is our main kind of poster that we were spreading around the neighborhood. So the whole idea was to start creating this kind of interest and awareness about why we need to have in place a Heatwave protocol. And so first of all, asking people the very simple question about have you ever wondered what you would do in an emergency such as Heatwave, power outage, or fire? So this is a video that we are going to show at the end, and I'm going to be back to this video. So this is the work plan that we were working with T and CREW. So the whole idea was to work with 4 specific buildings. And the main step was to invite 10 local leaders. You're going to see here I have 10 local leaders, resident local leaders, and also to invite 20 expert stakeholders. Basically, is to help us to reshape what kind of heat protocol we need in place. Then, so we have the 4 different towers, and each tower, the idea was to find 20 key volunteers. So community leader that is going to help us to spread the word and start asking questions about what we need to have in place in a Heatwave protocol. So we decided to work and And 3 buildings that is like private companies, developers, they are like managing this building. So basically that was the idea to work in 135 Rose Avenue, 77 Howard, 375 Liquor Street. And and then 65 Parliament. So we didn't have too much luck with the WSPQ. So we decided to move to change the 77 Howard to 325 Liquor Street as Toronto housing. So with this, we basically, we start working with 2 Toronto housing buildings and 2 private buildings. The idea in each building was to have to invite 5 resident volunteers. That is what I call our key volunteers. And the key volunteers, they need to find 20 volunteers living in the building. And how we are going, like how we were doing that is basically is doing lobby info sessions, get together outside the tower, using the recreation room if they have any, and to review all together the Heatwave response protocol. So that was our outreach and engagement campaign. So again, I'm repeating, is basically recruiting the 10 local resident leaders. We invite 2 local stakeholders, like 20 of them. We have all these lobby information sessions, so providing general information about why it's necessary to have a Heatwave protocol, recruiting interested residents for our 4 target buildings with a very short questionnaire, and then it's training sessions for building volunteers. So the whole idea was basically is discussing about Heatwave protocol, emergency preparedness, and emergency kit. So this is the 10 local leader residents. So we recruited and they collaborate with us, with T and crew, to document existing documents about Heatwave protocol models and discuss how to adapt to the local Heatwave scenarios. So we were having all this, we have so far 4 different meetings and a very formal meeting. So we have several informal meetings with them. And we discuss about all these documents and also trying to figure out what exactly is going on in Sajistown, what is missing there, and how we are going to prepare this protocol. So that was a very kind of a get together, working on all these different ideas. And we have for example, this is a mapping exercise about the neighborhood, what exactly is in place, what we have, and what we are missing there. So at the same time, we invite our advisory, we were forming our advisory committee, so external experts. So we invite 20 stakeholders to participate in 2 workshops. And the whole idea about this was to provide feedback in our draft of the Heatwave protocol response that is created with the team of local volunteer leaders with crew and T. So representative from the Sajistown community, local organizations, and service providers, academics, and City of Toronto division, so who play important roles in building community climate resilience. So I just want to say that Professor Alias Gary is part of our advisory committee. And that also is a picture about they get together with the stakeholders. So where we discuss about the protocol and how they are going to help us. So what kind of responsibility they can have and how they can play a role in the protocol. And at the same time, so we were recruiting 20 key volunteers in every single building. So 5 in each floor of the building. And we train there about how they need to conduct community outreach, engagement, and training about the protocol. So we have several lobby info sessions providing general information about the Heatwave response protocol. So you're going to see here all the pictures. So at the same time, as an outreach tool, so we were giving 80 thermometers and calendars. Basically is for the residents to start monitoring their temperatures in their homes and their apartment. And that was a very interesting tool because people, they don't realize how hot was their apartment. So it's very interesting when you are taking time and every day at the same time, you are just taking note about what kind of temperature are you having morning time, evening time, and then at the end you realize that you were living in kind of an oven, something like that. And also we have like all these like outdoor outreach engagement with people. So we were like basically inviting people, informing about the protocol and inviting them to work with us. And at the same time, when we were giving away the thermometer, so we were having this very short protocol survey. And the survey was basically is to know the existing situation of residents during the heat wave. What we learned is like, I'm just going to go very quickly about this. But what was very interesting for us is to learn that during the heat wave, 28% of residents are extremely uncomfortable in their homes. And the same 28%, they have a difficulty sleeping due to the heat. 36% of the concerned respondents report having no air conditioning, while the remaining 64%, some of them, they have some kind of air conditioning. 28% of these who have air conditioning think it's too expensive to run the AC. Despite the availability of alternate cooling options, 61% of the respondents say they use fan most to keep their home comfortable. And while the city has a number of cooling centers, 78 have no idea where they are. 63% of the respondents would like to learn more about how to prepare themselves, their families, and the neighbors for heat wave. So all this picture is showing you how we were doing outreach and engagement with the whole community. I just want to mention that Sanjay's town is home of 30,000 people. People, they are from all over the world, so they can basically it's people there speak around 100 different languages. So it's a very huge and diverse community in one block. And also what I want to mention is all these buildings, they are very aging buildings, so they were prepared in the 60s for the winter, not for the summer. And this is our key volunteer residents, so they were doing engagement and informing people about the heat protocol. And so we produced the draft of the protocol, and that was reviewed by our stakeholder advisory group. This is the heat wave protocol that we have right now. This is the draft. And the protocol has 5 focus areas to help support residents during a heat wave. So we have a communication, so all residents receive a notification of the heat wave. This is basically the ideal world. And resident homes are kept as possible, cool as possible. Cool areas and cooling stations, so residents are supported to reach this if their home is too hot. And contact system is vulnerable residents receive a check-in and support. Support services, as residents are immediately able to access local support services. And this is a one by one, all this a focus point. So for example, this is the whole idea is we discuss with the team of volunteers. So how we are going to communicate. So how we are going to basically is to alert residents when the heat wave is approaching. So we discuss about visual elements in multiple places, like a red flag or a large signs outside, something like this. So this is all the idea that we discuss in the group. And for example, this kind of sign, the fire kind of sign, but for the heat waves. And also all these, when the heat alert issue, residents receive a check-in and communicate public media messages about the ongoing situation, especially to hard to reach vulnerable group, because it's the problem sometimes is many people, they don't have access to internet. And you can just not send the alert by phone or by email or something like that. So you need to have a kind of a person there or knock the door to basically to be sure that they are going to get the information. And also the whole idea was to work with the building staff. We are still working at that part of the protocol. It's very hard to engage building management and staff. And also like this kind of paper notification. So the idea was to have this kind of like notification in every different floor. Also using social media. So for people who is very used to use WhatsApp or like texting or something like that. So like, for example, this like public alert is from the city of Vancouver. So that we are like basically is looking to have a something like this in Toronto. And this is number 2, the focus point in homes is basically is how we need to help people to try to cool their homes. If they don't have any AC, like for example, how you can still have that kind of place a little bit cooler. So all the tips about how you need to do that. And also easily, for example, outside of each building to have a place to cool outside the building area. So like, for example, if your space is very hot, so the possibility to go outside and to have this kind of structure, like for example, like a shade cells or like a water fountains, misting stations. And also like about this like communication actions. That can be so nice if we can distribute like free cooling devices to residents, like fans, blackout curtains, portable solar panels to power essentials. And also it's very important like buy more thermometers to residents to track temperatures inside units and recruit volunteers to handle water and ice when power elevators are out. So all these kind of ideas that you can do during a heat wave with a very strong kind of group of volunteer. And also is like work towards like, for example, creating this bylaw with the city about the 26 mandatory, the 26 Celsius degrees. The city is like basically is right now looking into it. And number 3 is cooling areas. It basically is when you don't have any place to go, your place is very hot and your building doesn't have any cooling places. So basically is you need to go outside and start like looking for a place where to be and to cool off. And in the buildings, we say like, for example, like we are looking around laundry rooms, basement spaces, or recreation room if they have any. By law, it's like in the city of Toronto, every rental unit they have a like they need to post a location of cooling room. They have a like a special for the city of Toronto where they need to say is the designated cooling room is like let's say in the recreation room or like a laundry room. Otherwise, also they need to show where exactly is the city cooling center, the nearby cooling center from the building. And so also we are discussing about this kind of very cool ideas about this is Tokyo. So they have this kind of cooling station. So we discuss about that can be so great having around all these 19 buildings. And then number 4 is contact system. So basically is you need to have a support group that includes volunteer. The ideal situation is to have a volunteer in every single floor who is very well knowledge about vulnerable residents, because many of them, they are living in a very, let's say, like a 10, 12 floor, and they have a mobility devices. And the problem with the heat waves is always, especially in St. Jamestown, is when it's very hot, blackout happens, it's no more power. So basically, if you are trapped in your apartment, you cannot go outside, you are using devices, elevators not working. So, so the whole idea with this protocol is how we are going to have all the list of people, vulnerable residents that we need to identify and to help during the emergency, like a heatwave emergency. And also is the idea is to connect with local agencies. They often have a people to they check. Basically, they have a list of people. Like for example, there's many agencies working with seniors, with children, so they have also like a vulnerable list. And then we have a activate contact group during the heat waves. So we are working at this idea about having each building, they need to have a volunteer group. So all these volunteer group basically is the heat wave volunteers. So they can check in and their neighbors. So basically is by phone call, WhatsApp, knocking the door. So basically is to see they have a received alert, they have essential supplies in their emergency kit. They have a cooling equipment. So how is the apartment? And that is when the heat wave alert is issued. And then during the heat wave, so basically is to see how they are feeling, to check the internal temperature of the apartment, especially with seniors, to see if they need support, like for example, moving to a cool area or accessing a local service. And during the heat wave, residents check-in to see if they, like for example, after the heat wave is basically is to see if they need help to be back to their apartments, if they need emergency supplies to restock their emergency kit, so something like that. And number 5, support services. That is basically is the citywide. It's not just the building, but basically is local support services. The whole idea is to work with partner agencies, service providers, and businesses to coordinate heat wave plans, ensuring vulnerable and marginalized groups are appropriately supported. So we have a protocol, and then we were training our 20 building volunteers. You remember I mentioned a 5 volunteer for all these 4 different high-rise buildings. So we have a 20 building volunteers, and basically is that we train them to learn and to be very familiar about the protocol. And we support volunteers to apply plans and protocol to their specific building. And we were developing and leading an outreach plan to engage the whole building residents. So because it's with the 10 volunteer leaders, we create this, let's say, generic protocol. So now we are working with the 20 building volunteers to learn what exactly is missing there and to adapt to their own building. And I want to mention here is you see this was an invitation for the 20 volunteers, and we were doing that with Francesco Del Carpio, who is a CIFAL member. So our collaboration with York University doing all this training. So this is the training. So we were presenting about the protocol and discussing each point of the protocol with these key volunteers. And after that was an exercise about them providing us a specific adaptation plan for each different building. Because what I want to mention is some buildings, they have a meeting room. Some of them, they don't have any. Some of them, they have a lobby area that is big. And some of them, they don't have any, and something like that. So basically is we were adapting the protocol to every specific scenario from each different building. And then local volunteer training residents on the basic of the protocol. We are in this moment right now. So we are engaging again the whole neighborhood. We are having all these information sessions. We are having table display about, or for example, here in the lobby, informing people about the protocol and inviting them for a next training that is going to be more a kind of soft training about the protocol. And again, we are going to do that with CIFAL, with your university CIFAL with Francesco, and that is going to happen on July the 8th, 2023. And that is my presentation. Thank you. And I think now we are going to show the video.
Yes, thank you very much, Lidia. I'm going to share my screen and go to presentation to the video right now. And I'm going to make sure that share the sound.
I live in this neighborhood more than 10 years in St. Jamestown. I'm living on 15 senior. It is very hard for me when the power is not goes out and it's hot. The first thing, I feel hot. My body feels hot and I don't know how can I manage that. Heat wave. Elevator is not working. I cannot go by stairs. How can I go outside to get my food or my medicine? If there is emergency, I have to go to doctor. How can I go downstairs? Or if I'm downstairs, how I can manage to come upstairs?
I've been in St. Jamestown for 10 years on floor 6. One thing that concerns me is the heat wave. During a heat wave, um, when our homes get hot and the AC is not working properly, because not everybody has access to ACs, air conditioners. Not having access to that, people want to go to somewhere where it's cool, where it's nice to stay in during the heat wave. The lobby is known as a cooling room or cooling area type. It's not that convenient for everybody because it's a small space, no benches, no chairs. Not everybody's going to stand and wait there. Outside the areas, the green areas, the yard, backyard, front yard, it's not that convenient in our building because there's no shade, no chairs, no benches. It's hard to stay there for a long time during a heat wave. We can make more cooling rooms and more green spaces available for people that is convenient, that is important for everybody, and that would be good.
My name is Tina and I'm 18 years old. I've been living in St. Jamestown for about 10 years now. So my main concern right now is communication. And I know our community is very diverse and like we're very culturally diverse, and that's a good thing. But when it comes to communications, there are things like language barriers, so like people not speaking the same language, and there's things like social tension where people don't really want to go into groups or like go talk to people because they're not the type, they want to stay alone and stuff. And this can cause a lot of problems, such as like in times of emergencies such as heat waves, they may not be able to get the information that's needed, they may not have the knowledge. And I believe that this can be fixed by having like creating such a group where people have the right to feel comfortable with each other, so they don't feel any stress or tension talking to people. And yeah, so bringing together, like bringing everyone together can really help us communicate with them better, have like better connections, so that like we can be there for each other when times are hard.
I moved into this calendar is 34 years. Summertime is sometimes so hot. I never use the machine, but because I'm older, it makes me sick, headache. Now my family are lonely because my grandchildren, before I raised them, my grandchildren, now he's finished university. I still go outside with community center, do the volunteer, many times for volunteer. So I'm so happy because I feeling I'm not lonely. So this is important.
Okay, this is a good time then to start some conversation with Lydia, and the floor is open for questions. If there is any question from the audience, please feel free to raise your hand. We can open the microphone for you. You can ask your question verbally, or you can type your question on the Q&A part. And I'm going to ask those questions from Lydia as they come. But
And also,
go ahead.
Ali, I just want to mention that the Community Climate Resilient in St. Jamestown is funded by the Commission for Environmental Cooperation, CEC. For nearly 30 years, the governments of Canada, Mexico, and the United States had worked together through the CEC to conserve, protect, and enhance the North American environment. So basically,
Yes.
the fund is from all these three governments: Mexico, Canada, and USA.
Very good. Thank you for providing additional information. As we wait for other for questions from the audience, if they have any, you presented the project very well. I think this is an interesting project, and We were really happy to have you in this session, because what we are doing at York, in particular in our research center, as you can see from the name, it is Why Emerge, and we choose that name intentionally. And as you see, this is York Emergency Mitigation, Engagement, Response, and Governance Institute. I'm talking mostly on the engagement part. We really want to engage and work with communities, organizations, NGOs like yourself that are doing groundwork on preparing communities for climate change, including other hazards related to that, as in particular heat waves that you mentioned. And we know how impactful your work is going to be, and considering that really not noticed, but Canada has been suffering in terms of human casualties in recent years from heat wave more than other hazards. It is the number of casualties associated to heat waves is comparable to many other hazards, if not more, which is the case. So with that, I really want to ask a question about one thing. It is this project has been going on, I believe, for 2 years or so. Maybe you can correct me if it is more. But has there been any attention to it from other cities or communities to come and learn directly, for example, communicating with you what you are doing, how we can learn from your activities, etc.? It may be too soon, but I just want to see if how other people react to this interesting project.
Charlie, for example, we started this project in May 2022. And we are still in the, you see that we are still in the process about bringing all the, let's say, all residents from these 4 different high-rise towers. We are in the process to train them and to reshape the whole kind of protocol. And after that, crew and T, we are going to have kind of national conference. So we are going to invite all these different municipalities, all the different people who are very interested in this kind of work. And that is going to happen, we are expecting around at the end of the summer. So I think after that, we are going to have quite a huge interest on this. For the moment, yes, we have an interest from different organizations, from different places, even different cities. Requesting us about how to start all this kind of community engagement, especially is how to work with a very kind of huge type of community, diverse community, and to start this kind of work. So what I want to say is we start working in St. James Town for 2017. And we were invited to go there. And the whole idea with working in St. James Town is because it's a very nice incubator. So you can find there all these different issues. And crew is, the main goal of crew is bringing people together. We are training people about how important is this approach about neighbors, helping neighbors. You can be on your own in your apartment. You don't want to speak with anyone, but something happened to you. It's a very huge emergency. The only person that you can go and knock the door is your neighbor. And that is the whole idea with crew, is basically bringing people together and start discussing about all the different issues and how we need to be emergency ready and to have an emergency kit. And what also is very important for crew is that we just don't have this type of project, because talking about emergency preparedness and climate issues and climate adaptation is not easy. People tend to, especially when you are living in a very low income, huge neighborhood, when you have different issues, you have housing affordability, lack of employment, food insecurity, and then also discussing about all these climate issues and adaptations. It's not an easy task, but with crew, we decide to use different tools. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, is for us, one of the very important tools is reclaiming green spaces. So St. James Town has a very interesting access no access, but yes, it's there, the Ros del Ravine. And what we are doing for 2 years now is taking people to, we call before discovery walk, and now we call group walk. And basically we invite people to walk with us and to have a potluck in the park and to discuss about how nice can be if we reclaim all these green spaces. So how important is green spaces in any emergency, especially heat waves. And also creating more kind of advocacy ideas about how we are going to reclaim to have access to the ravine. It's a very eye-opening because it's like you go to St. James Town, behind that is the ravine. There's no access to that. That was full of garbage and that was totally misused, neglected by the city. And then you go a little bit south, that is let's say the neighborhood is a little bit more like not wealthy, but it's like a kind of middle upper class people living their houses there. And they have this very nice park and a beautiful access to the ravine. So they have a staircase that you can take your bicycle and go. And so that's what the idea also is, connecting people to all the green spaces, is to see why they don't have that kind of access and how we need to fight all together for that.
Thank you so much. This is really interesting. All of these elements you mentioned are quite fascinating. The way we can connect people with the nature, especially if they live, it is in their backyard. Providing that access would make a huge difference. Now we have questions. Actually, 2 questions from Alison. I should say hello to Alison. I know her well. And she's asking to question, of course, by saying that the project is excellent. First question is, do you anticipate any problems with sustaining community interest or participation in this project?
Like I said before, is like we are working in the neighborhood from 2017. Takes time to build trust in the community. And that is a very slow process. It's not because I have this project, I just can go to the community and implement it. No, that is not the way. Also, crew is not the way that we are working. So we are basically little by little building this kind of volunteer network. So currently we have a very strong group of volunteers, and it's intergenerational. I have from the 14 years old to 87 years old. That is the volunteers. And anticipating challenges is more about getting access to work with developers or working with the building management. So especially we try very hard right now to work with Toronto Housing Corporation. So and the whole idea is sometimes all these buildings managers or management people, they are scared because they say, okay, so you're going to start creating too much noise about all these different issues, because we know all these buildings, they are very old and they have too many technical problems. And but we try to explain that we really want to work in the human side, getting people to know each other. So, and they are very important, a part of this kind of building resilience. So we are there. So we are little by little building that, but that is a very huge challenge. So basically is to bring all these stakeholders together.
Yes, understandable. Thank you. And the second part of this question is on, have you considered eventually looking at winter emergencies or not?
So crew is working. This is just what I presented today is one project, because that is the project that we are working specifically with Heatwave. But with crew, we are creating leadership in the community and working about different emergencies. And we are also training people to plan ahead and to have a specific plan and to have emergency kit And that means for winter, for a blackout, for floods, because that also is like a problem there, like a flooding in the basement that can happen. Fire can happen, so happened in 2018. And that was a very learning experience for all of us, because we were like doing this kind of like no intervention, but working in a specific building this kind of like emergency volunteers. And we were, after a year, we were like having these 14 volunteers and 14 floor, and the building was 23 floors. And we were in the middle of that happened the pandemic, so we couldn't continue the work. But in 2018, when we just started work, there was a fire in one of the 19 buildings. And that showcased like a very awful scenario when you are not prepared. Like around 3,000 people were without home, without almost for 2 years, they were like all over the places. And show like when you don't have a plan, you don't have a rental insurance, and you don't have an emergency kit, so you're totally lost because you don't have any place to go. And also show that the city was overwhelmed about all this, like many people without shelter or a roof on their heads.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for answering this question. I see there are some comments and questions coming. I am going to read what Rosalind Abba is writing here on the Q&A part. First, she is saying, well done, Lidia. This is a nice presentation. We all agree. I would like to know, the question is this, I would like to know if you are involving mathematicians in modeling the impact that the weather is having on that population, and the need for them to formulate mathematical modeling for forecasting these weather changes and help to guide policymakers to take them the necessary action at all times. So we have a mathematician asking for whether you would like to use mathematical models. And I would be happy to facilitate this process if there is willingness from both parts. So I'll leave it to you
for the moment we are not, but that can be so nice to learn about that. So exciting to learn more about that. So
absolutely. If you remember, we were talking about the possibility of, for example, having measurements of heat inside the building and some other measurements. So when these measurements are coming, there are possibilities of modeling different aspects of, heat, as well as combining that data with other data. Mathematical models, it depends how we interpret that. It is probably to be locally useful, must use local data or very specific local data, which is not unfortunately available to that scale that we need. Most of current mathematical models related to weather conditions are usually larger scale at the huge level, but I'm sure there are possibilities there. But Rosalind, if you want to talk about your question or comment, I can open up your microphone to also talk to your comments if you have additional comments. Otherwise, I think, do we have any more question? No, there is no other question that I can see now. But if you have any additional comment, Lidia, on that, please.
Yeah, I'm just going to put here my email in case that people wants to contact me.
Yeah, that would be great. I already put the link to Crew there also. Okay, so this is I'm going to type yours in for everybody. It just came to us as panelists.
Okay.
Crew resilience.ca. So it is Lidia.
Crewresilient.ca.
Exactly. So,
and like, for example, it's like about like learning more about like what kind of temperature they have there. We are having this conversation with CBC. They want to do like a kind of they want to learn more about it.
Mhm.
And we are now very we are just at the first phase of the conversation, but they want to investigate about what kind of temperature and humidity they have at the unit, and also like outside of the building. And
You showed an interesting slide when there was a request from public to make that bylaw change to make the degree maximum acceptable heat inside the buildings or living places where people rent. So that's of course an interesting request, and also I hope and I think we all hope that this is somehow taken care of and become an actual bylaw at some point. However, I want to ask or follow up on that. Has there been any request, which I think this is a follow up to that? Is it at all really difficult for building owners to somehow implement central cooling system in these buildings, or what are the conversation around that request or those things?
like for example, like right now, that kind it's not easy for them to do that right now, because it's like all the electrical kind of system, they are very aging. So they need to replace almost everything for them to be ready to have a central AC. But at least what we are working is like for all these units, rental units, to have at least one AC. So Toronto Housing is doing that. It's basically is giving one AC to tenants to put in the living room. But it's like it's not like easy process. So tenants, they need to fill a form and they need to apply for that, and that can take maybe a year in order for you to have your tiny AC. And then also different issues about like all these buildings, they are very old. So windows, they are not prepared to hold ACs. And no one is giving them like a kind of like a technical explanation how to install AC. So it's a very complex situation. And some of them, like for example, right now it's mandatory for all of these, they have a AC, they need to put only in the place that is a balcony there, okay, that the AC is falling down. When I'm visiting volunteers, the AC, they have a just cardboard around that, because it's mandatory also for them that when it's winter, they need to take out and they need to close the window. And because what happened is like was a few accidents in the past about falling ACs. So it's what I want to say is like as I said before, is St. Jamestown is a very interesting incubator to learn about all the different issues that you can find anywhere.
Yes.
So that happened there, because it's huge, it's massive, and also it's very old.
Exactly.
And also it's like that is another point, is like the pressure of gentrification also is huge. You go to St. Jamestown, you're going to see like around the boundaries, it's a very luxurious condos, penthouses, and making also the neighborhood more like a kind of like a hard to live place, because it's everything is getting very, very expensive.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. I think these are all interesting discussions, and I'm sure participants have seen, have learned what you have been doing, and there are lots of ideas coming from this conversation, especially with regard to some possibilities of extending this practice into other similar communities, and hopefully learning from each other. With that, I really want to thank you again for joining us this afternoon, and also thank all the participants, and also Sarah for supporting the background work and communications, and making sure this session goes smoothly. And we continue our emerging and systemic risk lectures in July. We have not yet finalized who will be our next speaker, but please stay in tune, and we will let you know if you are interested in joining for our next session. But with that, I want to say thank you also to crew members. This was a great project you have been doing, and looking forward to your future projects and collaborating with you in whatever you do from York University, CFOL York, and Y-Image. Thank you all, and stay safe.
Yeah, thank you very much.